So in one of my videos, I showed off some night vision gear, and some people have asked me if I could do some videos on budget night vision or night vision for beginners. So yeah, I guess I'll give it a shot. Quick caveat, I am not a heavy user of night vision. I'm not military, I'm not law enforcement. Um, Other than, shooting the occasional feral pig or coyote, that's really the only practical use I have for it. Other than that, it's really just a hobby for me. But a bunch of people keep asking me, like, how do you get into night vision? What's the cheapest way to get into it? And unfortunately, there isn't one. There is no such thing as budget night vision. You can buy cheaper units than a PVS 14, but some of these units that are like $400 or $500, they're generally either Russian or Gen 1 or Gen 2. The problem with the older generations is they're not very good without an illuminator. So unless you buy an IR emitting device, or it's almost like just walking around with just really adapted natural night vision. They're not that great. The field of view is really narrow. There's a lot of distortion, and their lifespan isn't very long. Some of these only last for 2,000 or 3,000 hours, whereas a PVS 14, these have been around for a while. You can get parts for them. There are accessories for them, and they're good for I want to say 10 to 15,000 hours. Maybe I'm wrong. It could be way more than that. Maybe it's 50,000. Don't quote me on that, but they'll actually last a long enough time to be worth the investment. I picked up this one. This is an Armasight PVS 14. It's actually an op mod. I got it from Optics Plant for about $3,100 when they were on sale, and then I just kind of went from there. Originally, my brother gave me his old Rhino mount, a standard Rhino and a Rhino 2, and I kind of adapted it to work both. I'll get into that. And then I just made a bunch of mistakes along the way. So this is, the way I see it, the best kind of bang for your buck to get good night vision. Because if you use crappy night vision, it's not going to feel like it's worth the expense. And honestly, it probably won't be for most people. But if you really want to get into it, I think this is the way to do it. And the other thing you need to do is manage your expectations. Night vision is not going to suddenly just make everything green and visible and you're all good. The biggest thing is the field of view. So if you want to simulate what night vision feels like, take a toilet paper tube and put it right up against your eye and walk around your house looking through the tube. That's what it feels like as far as the field of view. So right off the bat, people will do that and go, oh, this doesn't feel very good. It's not like I thought it would be at all. And it isn't. So that's just one of the things. So first thing, look for, I would say, a PVS 14, because you can get one. They usually come with a mount. This is called a J-arm, and that attaches to a little bayonet mount like this. And then that attaches to your mount. I actually replaced mine with an adapter that allows me to use dovetail, and I'll get into that too. So the problem with the J-arm mount is you've got this little thing that clips on, and it's really easy to activate this and dump your nods. And now, $3,000 worth of glass just hit the ground, which is why it's a good idea to dummy cord it, either with some paracord or use some bungees. The next thing you need to do is mount it somehow. So usually they're going to come with what's known as a skull crusher. It's basically this head strap that just tightly fits around your head and goes under your chin, and it's unbelievably tight, and you get a migraine in about 5 minutes. It's terrible. There's a reason why they're called skull crushers. The way to go is to get some kind of helmet. A bump helmet. It doesn't have to be ballistic, at least not for me. But don't do what I originally did and get like a crappy skateboard helmet. I originally got one made by PT, I think it was PTA Bravo. They're like $50. And you have to buy a shroud to attach your mount. And the chin strap is unbelievably uncomfortable. The padding is terrible. It shakes around your head. The fit's horrible. They're just not worth it. Again, there's really no cheap way to get into night vision. One of the reasons you need a decent helmet is you need something that keeps the night vision planted. I mean, you've got about, even if you're running a single monocular, you still got about a pound of weight basically dangling in front of your forehead. And it's going to shift around as you turn your head. And every time that little monocular moves in your field of view, it's going to drive you nuts. So some type of helmet. This is probably the cheapest way you can get a decent helmet. This is an OpsCore Fast bump helmet. It has a molded in shroud to attach your mount. The other thing is get at least a Rhino 2. Do not get the regular Rhino. So the regular Rhino, you can identify it by having these rails that the mount slides on. And the problem with the original Rhino is it doesn't have this height adjustment. It's locked. So once you flip them down, all you can do is adjust the tilt. And if it's not lined up with your eye, you're either looking up at it or looking down at it all the time, and it's just annoying. Rhinos are on, you can get them on eBay used for like $25, $30. You can pick up a Rhino 2 for about 60, maybe 70 used, and they're pretty bulletproof. But yeah, you got to have that adjustment. Without that, it's pointless. The other thing I did was I got a Neurotos AKA2 dovetail mount. It does fit on the Rhino 2. Rhino 2s with the dovetail mount go for like $300 or $400. So picking up a used one of these for about 70, you can pick one of these up from either DRTO or whatchamacallit, what's that night vision? TNVC. They're like 70 or 80 bucks. And they're usually back orders. You got to wait for them. But it allows you to fit a dovetail mount to your Rhino. All you got to do is just rip out one of these little roll pins, and then you can slide the new one on and then put the roll pin back in. The thing about the dovetail is the dovetail allows you to eventually go to a bridge mount or a PVS 15. The other nice thing about it is the dovetail doesn't have any slop in it, so these tend to have a lot of wiggle. So as you're walking around, they just kind of rattle on you. And again, they're really easy to just kind of deactivate and pop off. The dovetail mount's just a little bit more robust in not releasing them. And if you do the Rhino 2 dovetail mod, actually once you adjust it for length, because it retracts underneath, you actually can't accidentally dump your nods, which is really nice. So once you get a decent helmet, and you get a mount, and you get your, say you just get a standard monocular with a J-arm, you're pretty much good to go. That'll get you through for basic stuff. The problem is over time you start getting, so what happens when you wear a single monocular? You basically got one eye is looking at standard daylight and the other eye is looking at darkness. And so your brain basically just ignores what's coming out of the non-night vision eye. So you basically only see out of one eye, and you get what's called pirate eye, or you get this kind of weird eye strain where the eye that's getting the night vision, it just feels like it's, your brain just doesn't like to reconcile the two things. So at some point, probably want to go to duals if you're kind of serious about it. So I picked up this. This is a TNVC model. This was $2,600 used. And then I picked up this mount from Mod Armory. This is an Integrated Components D14. It was actually on Amazon for like $350. And the way it works is the little J-arm screw that this part normally attaches to right here. I am not staying in frame, I'm sorry. Basically just screws into this aluminum arm, which is bolted to this hinge here. And then these can rotate like that, which is really advantageous for a couple of reasons. They also make a $550 one where this dovetail, there's actually dovetail mounts here, and you can actually just pop off the one of the monoculars and just like hand it to a friend or something. I thought that would be cool, but then I kind of realized it's not that big a deal. I don't have any friends that are going to go run out with me at night, and shoot stuff, so it's not a big deal. But what I like about the PVS 14 on a dual bridge is you can basically grow into it. Get locked on there. So one of the things about the Rhino that people don't like is that when you flip them up out of the way, that's why it's called a Rhino. You can see how high it sits, which looks pretty ridiculous. And if you're in a car or going into a low doorway, you tend to knock your nods off, which is not good. Just being careful. So let me grab my other helmet here. This is a Neurotos low stow. You can see it doesn't sit way up high like that. It just kind of keep it out in front. But that's like $500. So, it's one of those things that it may or may not be worth it to you. But again, everything with night vision is expensive. But because I'm running a dual bridge, I can do this. All right, so when you're not using them, instead of flipping them up way out of the way, because you've got these hinges, you can just flip them up like this. And then you have a clear line of sight without using the night vision. And the nice thing about this is because they're just above your line of sight, you're always aware of where your night vision is. It's like wearing a baseball cap. So you're not as likely to bang these into stuff just because they're always kind of in your field of view. The other nice thing is if you do need to flip them up, you can actually fold these down and drop the profile pretty well compared to where they were way up here. So the Rhino 2 with a dovetail mount is not that bad. It's not terrible. And it'll get you by. I really have no intention of changing this out. This is basically going to be like a loaner rig that I can hang off to a friend. I've got a white light here. It's just a Streamlight single AA handheld light and just some Velcro, and I can just stick it on there. And it just gives me some white light if I need it. Ear Pro, these are just Impact Sports, the cheap ones. Threw some mounts from Unity Tactical on there, so I can wear Ear Pro without having to like mess with it. Got a counterweight system. This is OpsCore's counterweight system. It's bolted to the arc rails, and it just has some lead weights in there. That's really all it's good for. All it does is hold weight. You can't put batteries or anything in there like that. But it allows, it gives you some counterweight to balance the weight of all of this. If you don't have that, your neck just strains from the constant weight forward. So it just balances this thing out. So from a budget standpoint, this is kind of the bare minimum, the way I'd see it. You can pick up an OpsCore helmet used for probably $150. You know, these are $40 on Amazon. This is like a $30 counterweight, probably 50 or 60 bucks for the mount, 70 or 80 bucks for an adapter, 300 for the bridge, and you're looking at about between $5 and $6 grand for a pair of PVS 14s. But that'll basically get you by. You know, you've got manual gain on both, so you have to adjust both, obviously. They have 2 power switches to deal with. Again, not a huge deal. And the other nice thing is you have 2 IR illuminators. So indoors, you've got 2 little flood beams that give you some decent illumination. Inside of a shoot house or inside your house or small buildings, stuff like that, or just basically to keep you, to stop from stepping on a snake or tripping on a boulder or something, they're pretty decent. Other than that, yeah, that'll pretty much do it. Obviously, if you want to run a rifle, you need some kind of IR laser like a D-ball or a PEC, but that's a whole nother discussion. So anyway, yeah, there is no such thing as budget night vision as far as I'm concerned. So if you were kind of on the fence about spending the money and then you just peel yourself off the ceiling after you realize how expensive something like this is, I mean, for what's on here, you can buy a small car, so, or a used car. So, yeah, anyway, I've also got some other stuff that I'll probably do some other videos on, but yeah, if you have any questions, you know, drop me a line, let me know. I do read my comments. I'm not a big channel, I'm not monetized, so I actually can respond to people that send me questions. So anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye. Oh, incidentally, here's what night vision sounds like. Yeah, it doesn't make that sound like it does in the movies or in video games. So there you go.